What drives winning? What allows teams to win championships? But not just one championship, teams that win year after year. Follow me on this journey to talk with coaches all across the country to uncover what separates average teams versus champions. Hey, my name is Ryan Romano, and I'm your host here on the Championship Corner podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode. I'm super excited to have coach and good friend Lisa Bowerman over at TWU to talk with us this week about the ins and outs of her program and how she became a coach, and really help us dive into understanding those differences between average teams and championship teams. So if you don't know Lisa, let me be the one to brag on her, since I know she's probably not going to brag on herself. So I'll be the one to intro her. She's a three-time national champion as a head coach, two-time as an assistant coach, one-time conference champion as a head coach, three-time academic national champions as a head coach. Fun fact she told me before we jumped on this recording is that she's still the beam and floor record holder over at Illinois State. So big round of applause, keeping the scores high over there. And I would say the biggest thing is her probably pride and joy is being a mom and being a wife over to her family. So Lisa, appreciate you jumping on with me. Super excited to dive in with you today.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah. So tell us, I always think like backstory is like the most important. So tell us a little bit like how you got into coaching, a little bit. Obviously it started as an assistant, and then how like you eventually got into head coaching, and dive in that for us a little bit.
Yeah. So I think, just quickly to go back even a little further from coaching is, I grew up doing club gymnastics in St. Louis, and you hear some stories from gymnasts who grew up in environments that maybe shaped them in not the most positive way, but I would have to say that I had the most positive experience in my career, and had two amazing coaches throughout my career who certainly influenced me as an athlete, as a person, and I give so much credit to this day of who I am and where I am. They were very passionate, knowledgeable coaches who cared a lot for us. And so that really laid the foundation. And went off to Illinois State and competed there as an athlete, and really had a unique experience there also, in that I had three different head coaches in my time as an athlete. And so the coach that I came in with, she retired from coaching after my freshman year. We had different coach sophomore and junior year, and then a different one my senior year. So again, I feel like not knowing at the time what my future held, I think that really provided a great experience in just learning a lot through a lot of different people and different leaders. And so after my undergrad, I decided I wanted to do my master's degree, and my passion really at the time was nutrition, and wanted to be a sports dietitian. I wanted to specialize in treatment of eating disorders. And so TWU had one of the best programs in the country for exactly what I wanted to do my degree in. And so I applied, decided this is where I was coming. And my coach from back in St. Louis, I was talking with him about it, and he said, well, hey, maybe you should call Frank at TWU since you're going there. And I knew Frank growing up. He was very good friends with my club coach, actually got him started in coaching many years ago. So there was a lot of connection. Yeah. Yes. So I called Frank, and he said, well, I do actually have a graduate assistant position opening, but the problem is it doesn't open until spring semester. And I said, well, actually, I have one class I have to take at Illinois State, so I won't graduate until December. So that's perfect. So I came here and started as a graduate assistant coach with the intention of just kind of doing it as something fun, to do while I was doing my master's degree, and very quickly fell in love with coaching. and very quickly realized how much, I was prepared for that through my club career and my college career. And so I did finish my degree, and I had an opportunity to stay at TW as a full-time assistant. And then Frank Kudlak, who was here 33 years and started the program, I worked with him for 7 years, and then he decided it was time for him to retire and move on. And I had the great opportunity to stay and take over the program as the head coach in the fall of 2011.
Yeah. So what would have been for somebody like for you coming in and filling somebody's shoes that's been there for like decades? And like as you come in, what would be like, yeah, there is a certain foundation laid, but like you're gonna want to put your own stamp on it. You're gonna want to like tweak and change things that like fit your personality, your philosophy, your style as a coach. So what would have been some of those changes and what were some of those hurdles like as you came in, like laying your own foundation as you became the head coach?
Right. I think, it was also, I think, somewhat unique, and I know it does happen in sport, but the fact that I had been here for 7 years,
Yeah.
In various roles, I think played into my favor, but also in some respects made it a little bit more difficult. I think, when you're a head coach coming in from the outside, a new head coach, and you're taking over a program, you don't necessarily have a strong connection to some of the things that have been done in the past or how it's been done. It's purely, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. You like it or you don't. And I think for me, having, already been a part of the program and had relationships with the athletes who were currently here and who had been recruited and all of that, I think in a lot of ways it helped me a lot because I already had those relationships and knowledge and trust. And I believe it's been huge in just the program as a whole of being able to carry on a lot of the traditions. And I think our program is unique in that we have been around for as long as we have and have only had 2 head coaches. And so I think that keeps, our connection with alumni and all of that very strong. But I do think that, some changes took a little bit longer in the early years just because I did know how important some of those things were. People were used to a certain way. And so I did feel like I had to kind of like be progressional and very thoughtful in changes that were made over the last several years.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest misunderstanding or like misconception about the program there at TWU?
I think there are a lot of them, honestly. And
Well,
I
let's be
think
honest.
then I will. I think that probably one of, just the most obvious and greatest misconceptions is that, we are by, the terms of scholarships and things like that, we're a Division II program. And so I think that there's just kind of this automatic assumption that it means that we can't compete within Division I. It means that we're less competitive or we're less driven or we have less resources. And none of those things are true. And, I think when we have people come to campus who've never been to campus, who see our training facilities, who, just hear more about how we operate and what we do, they are very surprised because I think there's just, this picture people get in their minds when they think of a Division II, in Denton, Texas. Where the heck even is that? And then they arrive in Denton and they arrive on campus or they see us out at a meet and are just, I think, blown away in what we do and how talented our athletes are and how driven we are and how hard we work and the support that our university gives us. It's all phenomenal. And I think, when people are willing to just give it a chance, open their eyes, take a look, they see that Division II tag is simply that. It's just a tag given to us based on the number of scholarships we can offer.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you guys are, I don't know that there's another NCAA sport that is set up like you guys because even though you, I guess, have the label, have the tag as like Division II, it's like theoretically, like you can still go compete, win, go to NCAA regionals, go to nationals theoretically, win those things, which is completely different. I don't even know that I understood it as I kind of got in y'all's world over the past, 3 or 4 years. Do you find that like as you're recruiting, do kids know that, or do you actually have to like educate them on that process, or like is there a misunderstanding while you're recruiting with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we do have to explain repeatedly because, like you said, not a lot of people, understandably, have that in-depth knowledge of how the NCAA is structured and all of those things. But yes, gymnastics is considered in the NCAA's eyes a national collegiate sport, meaning that the NCAA championship for gymnastics is open to all three divisions. And so, like you said, really in their eyes, the only difference is the scholarships and a couple of rules, but we're all under one umbrella as far as competition goes. And so, yes, I think that's something we do explain repeatedly. And again, not because people don't care to know, it's just, the majority of the programs in the country are Division I. And so people know and understand what that looks like. And so I actually really appreciate when they are willing to ask those questions rather than just, be dismissive, because we have had it, had that initial conversation and heard, well, I'm only interested in going to a Division I school. And that's hard to take, but when they'll allow us the opportunity to explain that their experience really is no different than a lot of Division I programs, then I think, and we've had some of those athletes come and end up on our team that had that initial stance of, and it's simply because they didn't know. So
Yeah, and then you guys like do a good job of like scheduling wise, like scheduling those type of teams to like say like, hey, like we're not just going to like compete with people like within our conference, like we're going to travel around the country and we're going to compete literally against some of the best programs all across the country. So like you're not going to miss out on anything if you think you want to go there because you just want to compete against X, Y, and Z. It's like you can do that here too, which I think is also like unique about like y'all's program as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, every year our schedule is packed with top 20 teams. And, this upcoming season, we'll start the year off at Denver with Denver and Penn State. And then the following weekend, we travel to Arizona for a quad meet there with Illinois and Bowling Green. Oklahoma will be here this year, Florida, Washington. I mean, every year we are, like you said, all over the country. And again, we have a great facility, we have a great staff and great resources that support a great home competition environment. So those top 20 teams also love coming here. So it's not just, oh, like they'll invite us once in a while. We get to go to those big programs to compete because they know we're going to be competitive. They know the quality of our program and our athletes. And then they also love to come and compete in Denton, Texas. So it goes both ways. And we're really, fortunate to have those opportunities. But I think, when it comes down to really is that we deserve those opportunities and we can compete with those programs. And we've shown that, and we have won a number of Division I competitions in past years. And last season alone, I believe it was 13 Division I programs that we beat in competition. So it's definitely just, people need to kind of open their eyes and see that. And when we have the opportunities to show them that, it's certainly rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say, kind of a two-part question is like, as you're recruiting and coaching, like how do you describe like your style or your philosophy like as a coach? And then part two with that would be is like what's probably the most misunderstood thing about you as a coach? I have my own opinion because I get behind the curtain look at the program. So, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yes. So, I think in terms of just, the process of getting to know me as a coach and our program, I think, one of the most important things that we let the athletes know and that I know is true about us is that myself and our entire staff really are 100% invested in every single person that's a part of this program. And I mean that in that it's not just, okay, what routines can you do? Excuse me, what routines can you do? What score can you get? And then, if you get injured, well, see you later. You can't give us anything. So we're done with you. We are truly invested in every aspect of who they are as athletes and as students and just as individuals. I think one of the greatest potentially disservices that college athletics in a lot of ways is doing at this point in time is kind of setting up college athletes for failure in a sense. They have so many things that are just every answer is given to them, every decision is made for them, and they leave their athletic experience into the real world going, wait, who's going to tell me what to do? Who's going to tell me all of these things? Who's going to provide all of my meals? And so we certainly do a lot of those things for our athletes, but we also provide a lot of experiences for them that I think push them and challenge them in different ways. And, whether it's working with you and just the ways that you challenge them and using that as a resource, and some other members of our community and campus that we bring in to just really help them develop in their time here. So I think that's the number one is how we view them just as a whole person and what that looks like. And also, we're a program that looks for athletes that, want to come in and get better. And that's something that I think is a big part of, again, myself and the rest of our staff that, we aren't just like, okay, you can do this currently, come in, do this, and we'll be good. It's okay, you can do this currently, but here's where we see your potential. And we're going to push you out of your comfort zone to compete skills you never thought you'd do in college, to compete events you never thought you would do in college. And it's really exciting to see that come to fruition for them and them to kind of surpass their own expectations.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always say they're at that age or juncture in their own life where most of their beliefs at this point in their life have basically been told to them. And so I think now they're at that point and it's understanding why they believe what they believe, whatever it is in life. And I think that that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of them at that point, because it's why do you believe that? It's I don't know. It's well, shit, that's what you need to go, because it's either going to do one of two things, right? It's going to shift your belief, or it's just going to strengthen what you believe in, because now you have a deeper understanding of this is why I believe this. This is why I think the way that I think. This is why the way that I operate on a day-to-day basis, not just oh, why do you believe that? It's because my mom told me for 18 years, it's not really good. Or it's because I just heard this at church, or I heard this from my coach, or wherever it is. It's no, it's that's okay, but really understand why you believe that. Don't just take everybody's word for it. And so, yeah, I think getting them to understand that there are keys out there to unlock a whole new them over these next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So yeah, I definitely think that that's the biggest thing at that point, in their life, where you guys definitely play such a big role in shaping who they are after they do leave. So yeah. So what do you think the biggest misconception about you as a coach is?
I think in a sense, it goes back to, a misconception about the program, and that, I think there's kind of a few different things. I think one of them being, I have been at TWU, for my career, my coaching career. And, again, going back to that, just perception of it's a Division II program, the number of times that I've had other coaches or different people ask me well, don't you want to move up? Don't you want to move up? Well, what does that even mean? Move up, as, this idea that, being here, being at this place and being here for this length of time means that, I'm complacent or I'm not competitive or I don't want to be the best. And it couldn't be further from the truth. What's kept me here is that I do want to be the best and I do believe in what we're doing here. And every single year is a brand new challenge. And I think, the things that we do as a part of this program are making a difference, and we are extremely competitive and, continue to get better and better. And for me, it's, there's always that next thing. There's always that like next carrot dangling, and that's what I'm constantly chasing after. So I think that's certainly one of the highest things that are misunderstood about me.
Yeah, I think I would piggyback on that and say too is like how competitive like you actually are, like as a coach and as a person, because I think a lot of people, they think very like polar, like you can't have one without the other in terms of like who you are as a person. It's like I'm this nice, loving, I care for you, I want to help you out, like almost like motherly figure for them as they go on this journey through their college experience with you as a coach. And then the moment that it's like, but like no guy, like I do want to win. Like there is that element too. And everybody's like, wait a minute, like you can have both, right? Like they can definitely overlap. It's kind of like on the last episode talking with Dom, he's like, understanding that like hard work and fun can go together. And I think that that's kind of like the same element here. It's like, I want to be competitive, but I can care about you at the same time too. They don't have to be like separate. And so I think that like there is a lion, a tiger, a fierce person like inside of you that a lot of people just misconceive, like, oh, she's so nice and sweet. Like, yeah, but like she also wants to win. Very, 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 very competitive. How do you find that challenging to get across to the athletes?
I definitely would say I agree with you. I think that is certainly something that can be perceived by my athletes and or by people outside of our program. The fact that I'm not in here or in the competition gym just screaming and yelling and throwing things and, all of that. I think sometimes can be interpreted as that being less competitive or less intense or less fiery. And like you said, I know there are certainly, it can be difficult for the athletes to kind of fully understand and fully grasp. But I also think, in a lot of ways, I do think that I see evidence that they do get it. And, even like small things like, when they'll joke around and be like, oh, we know the look. And I'm like, what? Like, like I don't have to yell. I don't have like, they know, I guess by my facial expression, that it's just, okay, that's not what we need. That's not going to help us. And so I do think that it can be difficult to understand, but I also think that part of what we try to, again, get them to open up and understand, like with a bigger perspective for the world in general, is how much of a difference just a true relationship and trust and care and understanding can make in your life in any realm. I think when I truly know and believe that, because I have the relationship I have with my athletes and being able to truly know them and for them to know that they can truly come to me or any of our staff if they're struggling, if, whatever it is, if they're excited about something, like we have that. And so I think that makes me a better coach for them. And I think them knowing and understanding how invested we are in them makes them better athletes. It makes them more committed because they know that it doesn't end with a score. It doesn't end if they get injured. It doesn't, this is the real deal. And, so I think sometimes, yes, it can be hard for them to kind of make that switch when we do get a little more outwardly intense with them. But I think, and I hope that they know that it's always in there.
Yeah. What would you say, like, what's the biggest difference in your opinion, like between the teams that have won championships for you and the teams that haven't? Like where is that gap between, because obviously at the end of the day, like let's be real, like winning is fun too, and we want to win, and we have these goals and this mission to be able to get to a certain point by the end of the season. Where's that gap in the teams that you've coached and your experience between the teams that have been able to be at the top of the mountain and win those championships and continue to grow and succeed and experience that success versus the ones that didn't?
I would say, I mean, there's probably a few key things that come to mind. I think, without a doubt, one of the greatest, most obvious things that I've seen in those teams that win is a level of selflessness when it comes to competition. I don't mean selflessness like, forget about yourself, don't care about yourself, don't take care of yourself, it's all for the team, that kind of old school mentality. I mean, that you don't care who gets the credit, that, it's not about my own individual title or individual event final or whatever. It is purely, or like, I really want to be in lineup, but I'm not. And so, I'm going to support those people who are in lineup 1000% with genuine excitement and joy and whatever they need versus, having some of that, whether it's super outward or it's just kind of behind the scenes, it all has a negative effect when there's kind of that turmoil of, well, I don't really think she should be in lineup, I should be.
Yeah.
It will destroy a team, and I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always think that boils. So I know Tony Robbins talks a lot about this, is like one of he calls it 6 basic needs of life. And one of them is the need to feel significant. And we all want to have that. Like, it's not a bad thing, but some people want it in a negative way. I think he described it in the sense of you can build a building and feel significant, but you can also blow a building up and become significant, right? Like it's one of the two. And so it's like one's more in a growth and positive way, and then one is more in a destructive and negative way. And so I think it's like helping them understand, it's like it's okay to want to feel significant, but like, are you blowing the building up or are you helping build the building? And so getting them to grasp that and understand, it's like it's not a bad thing that you want to feel. We all want that, right? Like everybody wants to be bragged on or like talked about or things like that, and that's okay. But how do we do it in a constructive way? And then in your guys' case, like how do we do it to grow together so we can accomplish like what we want at the end of the day?
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think 2018 was one of the examples that stands out the most of just, we had some athletes who were injured through a good chunk of the year, and they were, a couple of our highest scoring potential routines. We knew they were strong competitors who could thrive in that moment of pressure. And, having athletes who compete in a lineup all season long and then come championship time, virtually have that spot taken by someone who hasn't been competing the entire season, and being able to say, yep, they're the one, and like fully support that wholeheartedly. I think it's hard. It's hard for any of us, let alone, when you are in that age. And so just things like that, little signs of that selflessness and that team first mentality is always a big one. And, I think another is really just the confidence. Like, I know, like you like to talk to him a lot about that swagger, like that has made such a difference in those teams that have won, is that they have walked into the building knowing on that day, this is ours. And I'll never forget, like in 2017, in Seattle, when we won number 10, and it had been a good chunk of time since our last championship. We had been trying for that 10 for so long. And the number of people that came to me before and or after the competition and said, we knew it. Like, we knew it from the moment your team walked in this building, this championship was done. You have to carry that mentality of, I own this, I am that good, now watch me do it. And so teams that have that and carry that with them always have the best chance of coming out on top.
Yeah, and it goes into a lot of like like what I believe too. It's like everything is energy, right? Like everything, no matter what, it's felt. And there's a certain aura, like when you come in a building, it's like whether a opposition, competition, whatever you want to call it, like they know it or not, but like subconsciously, it's like it starts to breed in a little bit of doubt, right? Like it's like, oh,
And
wow.
we've been on the other side of it.
Oh
We've
yeah.
been, I've watched those teams that haven't been, you know, our championship teams, and I see it. I can feel it from them the moment that team walks in that is on top, you know, and how it just this little bit of energy change of kind of sinking in, watching what they're doing, you know, automatically putting them on that pedestal. I mean, you've just given it to them.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Couple more things. So I know like for you as a person, it fits into like your coaching philosophy and then like how you operate and run your program, like what growth like means to you. Talk a little bit about like what growth is to you and like why it's so important to like instill that within your program every year, every day.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I think there's so many aspects to growth and what it means and why it's important. I think, you know, one of the biggest things is I think we live in a world right now where I think it began as well intentioned, and I think there are some positives from it. But I think this mentality and this, you know, hey, you do what makes you happy, and you do you, and you. I think, you know, where we do want our athletes and we need ourselves to pay attention to what we want and what we need and what's important in our lives and those type of things. But I think it's been so heavy that it's kind of put this whole curtain up to like mean really that it doesn't matter anything outside of your own happiness in this particular moment and your own comfort in this particular moment. And I think that it does not set you up for success in the real world or in college athletics. I think, you know, we have to understand that there are people and situations outside of ourselves, and that you know, we constantly need to be growing in our perspective and in, you know, just having a better understanding of what's going on in the world, what's going on with people that you're going to encounter on a daily basis. And it doesn't mean, you know, change your own beliefs or do things that you don't believe in or do things that make you unhappy, but it means we do have to care about the rest of the world, and we should want to. And we should want to really truly understand other perspectives. And I think the other piece of it that is huge is just, you know, it is a never ending journey. And I think sometimes, a lot of times, it feels like our athletes feel like, okay, I need to do this, and then I get there, right? And then I'm grown and I understand it all, but it's not true. And I think, you know, you and I are great proof of that, you know, I am constantly looking to learn and grow. And whether it's podcasts or books or conversations or whatever it may be, I think the moment you stop growing or you think you know it all or have it all down is, I mean, man, life's over. I think it is a process to the end. And so helping them understand and see, hopefully, you know, us as role models and the rest of our staff and things that like, this is something we're constantly doing. We're not asking you to do something. We're not standing up here going, oh, you're young and you have things to learn. No, we all have things to learn. So I think that's important for everyone to understand.
Yeah. And then I think getting them to understand like growth as a person. And it took me, gosh, until 2.5, almost 3 decades to really like I think I intellectually knew this, but didn't really understand it. That like to grow really means to like shift and transform like your identity and who you are like as a person. And I think a lot of people growing for them just means like inputting new information. And like while that's the start of it, but it's like, how is that shifting you as a person? How do you think, act, and feel differently because of that new information or because of that new relationship? It's like who I can't actually, I think it's Tony Robbins too, but it's like, he always talks about, he's like, knowledge is not power. He's like, it's potential power, right? And I think a lot of people, they consume a lot of things like, oh, great idea. Oh yeah, I like that. But like they don't actually like implement any of those things into their lives. And so it's like their identity's never actually shifting. It's like they understand, they know a lot of information, but like that transformation, like actually hasn't happened yet. The information hasn't become transformative yet. And so getting them
Yeah.
to understand that like that's what like growth is. That's what it means.
Yeah.
It's like upgrading your personality and your identity and the way that you see the
Mhm.
world. Um,
And I think like giving yourself and others room to grow and grace to grow and like grace for, where they were at 10 years ago. I think it is transformative. And I think it's a little too harsh to say, oh my gosh, like I regret all of these things that I did back then, or that I said back then, or I believed, or that how I acted. But I think me as a head coach now versus day one in 2011, I can look back on certain situations and go, probably would have looked at that a little bit different
yeah.
now, 12 years later, than I did then. And it doesn't, I think that's part of a struggle in our culture too, is to kind of hold people in this box, or this whole cancel culture idea of like, oh, well, this one decision, this one action, this one statement, and I shall hold this against you forever. Instead of going, hey, like, she's evolved, I've evolved, and like it is a process. It doesn't mean free reign to just, do horrible things to people for all
Right.
these years and then say, oh, I'm not that person. But people do change, people do evolve, and our perspectives, when we really, like you said, take in these things that we're, reading, looking at, listening to, and we really bring it into a part of who we are, we keep the foundation of, for me personally, like I have the same foundation of who I am and what I believe, but I also have a bigger perspective that kind of has challenged and changed some of the ways that, I approach certain situations or things like that as a leader. So I think it's important that people give themselves and others that room.
And I think too is a lot of people, especially in the athletic world, but I even think that like globally, this is how the majority of the people think too, is they're waiting for the next person to change and then they'll take action, right? It's like you want a better team, you get better. Bottom line, right? Like you want to change something, you become that person. Don't wait for the next person to like give you that confidence to actually take that
Mm-hmm.
action or take that step. It's like if you want something, like you have to be that person first. And I think that like that's probably the biggest hurdle for most people, and especially in the athletic world when teams are trying
Mm-hmm.
to get better, is they're always waiting for the next person. They're always waiting for the next person. Or when somebody takes action, they're going to give it a week or two and be like, come on, come back down to my level. Don't, why are you so serious? Don't be no
Yeah.
fun. Like, come, let's go. Like, and drag them back down. Versus it's like, no, like, this is who I'm going to be now. Like, this is the identity that I've created for me, because I feel like it changes the world or makes the team better or makes the people around me better, whatever the case is for that. So I think that's another piece of it. It's like when you want something, like you go become that.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the next person.
Yeah, it's much easier to look around and go, oh, well, this person's not doing this. And, when I have, if athletes are like, oh, well, this person's not doing this, or I need this person to do more of this or less of this. And it's like, that's so much easier than just saying, hey, like you said, I can do this. I'm going to make this change. And, a lot of times like that results in people following. Like it only takes one to kind of make that statement, to be like, hold true to it and hold on to it for a little bit, even through the parts where people are like, what are you doing? This seems a little, a little
Yeah.
different. And, when it comes to athletics and teams and things like that, and maybe it's just how you're working or how you're approaching practice or competition, and then suddenly people are like, looks like that's working, maybe I'll get on board. And then next thing you know, you've got a whole team that's, training in a certain way or showing a certain level of confidence, and everybody gets better.
Yeah. Last question. What's the one, we kind of touched on it earlier, You can go one of two routes, or you can do both. What's the one piece of it, like advice you would give, like for any athlete, any coach, any parent in terms of like growth and upgrading like who they are? And or it's like, what's the one thing you want everybody to know about TWU?
Those are two very different directions.
Yeah.
Trying to think which way I want to go. I mean, I think I touched a lot on the program in particular, and so I think I'll go the other route of, you know, growth, and maybe it's just a little bit of reiterating some of the things that I said, but I think the willingness to truly open yourself up to growth, to you know, for a minute, shut out, you know, the social media influencers, and just, I mean, social media, when you're talking athletics and looking at, you know, and that ties into the program of, you know, looking at what program you want to be a part of. Like, you know, it's not about just who's got the greatest social media presence, who has the coolest videos, who has the coolest stuff. I mean, those are the things that are influencing decisions right now. And those are the things that are giving people a sense of value and a sense of worth. And I think, you know, we really should be looking at our growth in a sense of becoming the very best, most effective, most, you know, all of the things version of ourselves. And then not neglecting the fact of what does that look like for the people around me, and how can I be the most impactful human just in this world, in this earth. And, you know, that may be just you and the 5 people that you see on a daily basis, or the people that you end up working with at the office or whatever. But understanding that every single person has so much more in them than I think we give ourselves credit for. And when you open yourself up, you get uncomfortable, you put in the effort, you're going to live your best life, and you're going to impact people around you in ways you could never imagine.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, super appreciative of you jumping on and chatting with us today. I know season gets kicked off here in the next, 2, 3, 4 weeks. What's the exact date?
Exactly 1 month from today, January 8th.
January 8th, and you guys go to Denver, correct? Is that where you kick off this year?
That's
so they'll
right.
be out. Say it again. Sorry.
That's right. Yes.
Yep. So January 8th in Denver, and then you guys are off at Arizona. Is that the second meet?
Yep.
And then your first home meet is
Friday, January 20th.
January 20th. So if you guys want to come out, support, follow along their journey, I know they also have a social media presence that you can follow their journey along, keep up with their program. If you have questions, you know, as always, like reach out to understand like more about their program or what they're about and who they are as coaches and how they continue to grow and develop into a more and more and more evolved championship type caliber program. So Lisa, again, super grateful that you jumped on with me today. And as always, like my number one goal, like throughout these conversations and having this podcast is like, it's really to find one piece of value in it. It's not to like consume everything. It's like, how can I take that one piece of information and use it to actually transform who I am or the way that I see the world? So as always, love you guys. Can't wait to see you guys next week on next episode.